Well, hello, everyone. I was trying to see myself here. Okay, I think I got it. All right. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. It's your girl, Gabrielle. And once again, I'm doing this from my car, so bear with me as I do all this. All right. So let me tell you what's going on. This is the show where we like to have those real talk conversations. We like to talk that real talk about things in employment, education, mental health, physical health, anything that is steamy. We also like to have conversations about entrepreneurship. We talk about disabilities, we talk about homeschooling. So we cover a lot of ground here. And today, I am excited about today because today we have a brand new topic and a brand new guest. So let me tell you what our new topic is today. So the new topic of the show is life of an immigrant, right? So we're going to talk about immigration. We're going to talk about life journeys. We're going to get into all that. And my guest is going to share her life story about immigration. And it's a lot when you're moving from one country to another. You're picking up new cultures. You're speaking new languages. It's a lot to move from one country to another to live there. So my guest is going to share her story and, I'm going to pick her brain about it. So my guest, her name is Mariana Santiago. And let me tell you, her life journey, it begins in Venezuela and it ends up in Canada. And that's what she's going to talk about today. So let's get right to it. I'm going to bring her to the stage right now. Hi, Mariana. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to change my layout. All right. So, I definitely want to hear your life journey and, your immigration journey and all that good stuff, all that jazz. So I'm gonna, just go ahead and pass the baton over to you, and please tell us your life journey.
So, long story short, let's put it that way. I was born in Venezuela. I lived my entire life there pretty much. I was an exchange student back when I was about 17 years old. I moved to California where I had the opportunity to study there as a senior in high school, and I learned English a bit more. I used to take classes there, and then I went back to Venezuela again for 10 years to study university, to graduate from bachelor's in business administration, to work. I had the opportunity to work with pharmaceutical companies like Novartis, Eli Lilly, and I had a pretty good professional career there. But the country was not doing so great for the ones that don't know what's going on in Venezuela. It's that pretty much the economy, it's pretty bad. There's no future. If you want to build a future there, salaries don't count for anything. So I took the decision to move out of the country. I always wanted to do a postgraduate in my field, having experience in marketing, and I thought the decision was right in 2015. I said this is a moment where I can't see a future here for me if I want to build a family, if I want to have a successful career, if I want to have stability, safety. I need to move out, and I think it's a time for me to do that postgraduate that I always wanted to do and then be gone. And in 2015, I was 27 years old when I decided to move to Canada to do a postgrad in marketing. And I left my family. I moved here on my own and started studying in George Brown College for that program in marketing. And after that, I have to say I was never able to go back to marketing, but I found different paths in my life here, and I'm very happy to have moved here. I can't say that it's been the easiest choice or like path that I've been in, but it was worth it. It's worth it to leave that box that I grew up in and see the world and with a different lens, to leave my culture, to learn from another culture, and living in Toronto, Canada, as you can see here, the CN Tower. You get to learn from many cultures here, as it's such a multicultural city that you get to see people from all over the world, and it's very interesting and very open-minded, and I'm very happy to this day that I made that decision, and I hope I can shed some light in with my story and everything to all of you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. So, let's pick at that a little bit. All right. So, how old were you when you left Venezuela?
I took the decision when I was 26. I left when I was 27.
All right. And so let's pick at that. So, you in Venezuela, there was an issue with the economy. So, can you talk more about that?
So after Hugo Chavez won, let's say that was in 1999, a lot of people left the country because he pretty much was kind of like a dictator, but under the democracy, he wanted to implement socialism. And in a country where you have 80% of poverty, you can't implement those type of governments, let's put it that way. So the country got even more like poorer, even more poor, and middle class was like going down, the richer was getting richer, poor, the percentage in poor people and like the poor population, and when I mean poor, it's like people that have no houses, no education, nothing, like absolutely nothing. They live in mountains. It's a pretty sad reality, and a lot of kidnapping. So many people left the country because they were getting kidnapped, and all that started in 1999. I guess every time this president was reelected, three times, every time that he was reelected, more people would leave, more people would leave. Finally, he died in 2013 of cancer, and the new president that took over was his right hand, and the economy took a hit very, very bad too. 500% inflation within a year. It was crazy. Like salaries were not worth for anything. I was working at Novartis. I was working at companies like Eli Lilly. I had a pretty good salary. I was getting paid a lot, and that meant
Mhm.
nothing in our economy. It didn't matter if I was a brand manager with a great position and a great exposure to the world. My salary was for nothing. If I went out a few times and I couldn't even pay rent, let's put it that way. Not even in the worst ghetto in Venezuela where I could probably live for a day because I was going to get killed a day after.
Yeah.
Not even that you could pay with your salary. It was insane. So it was on you learn to survive. You don't live there anymore. You're just surviving. There's no food. There's shortage of everything, of like toilet paper, of primary things like meat, chicken, like nothing. No, I don't know, no mayo, so many things that it was crazy. And a comment that I do comedy as a side hustle right now. And I remember that when COVID started here in Toronto, and you would go into the supermarkets and everything was completely empty. I'm like, I feel like home. Toilet paper, I feel at home. And it's crazy that you get to live like that. And every time you go out during the night, you don't know if you're going to get kidnapped and killed. Like people were disappearing. We lived in a culture that if you went out, let's say that I went to your house, Gabrielle, we had dinner, and then after I leave your house, you're telling me, let me know that you got home, let me know that you got home. And if I don't, the probabilities are that I got kidnapped, I got killed. It's crazy to live like that. So at my 27 years old, and again, I always wanted to do a postgraduate in marketing because that's what I had been working for the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, okay, I want a better future. So I either ask my dad, because again, like savings, the savings at that time were zero, because my salary, like in the books, I was getting paid, I don't know, let's say $6,000, but because they pay me in my own currency, and like there's the situation of the black market currency, we have the official price of the dollar and the one that you get on the street. So my salary was $6,000, let's say, and when I went out on the street with my currency to get something, it was actually worth $200. That was it. So with $200, you can't live. I think minimum wage in Venezuela to this day, it's like $15 a month. It's crazy. So I was like, okay, I need to leave now. I think I have no partner. I was by myself. I was like, if I get in another relationship, I may never leave. So this is the moment for me to go and do that postgraduate that I want. So I either ask for my parents for help to help me get a place here in Venezuela, and maybe I want to leave in like a few years anyways, or I take the chance, I take the opportunity to do that postgraduate in another country and finally leave and look for another future. And that's why I chose Canada, because it's easier to immigrate. My first idea, my first option was to go to the United States, but after once you study and once they give you the work permit, it's the probabilities of you staying there are not that high. Meanwhile, in Canada, they give you the opportunity to be a resident and to apply for an express residency if you have like certain experience, certain level of English, if you have certain age, you you know certain requirements that I had them all. So that is the reason why I choose to Canada, because it was easier to immigrate, and I knew that for sure I would have a future here, and I wouldn't have to go back like many of my friends who went to the States go back to Venezuela and say I'm back to square one.
Yeah, yeah. So you said a lot there, so let's unpack that. But yeah, so basically, which is a very common reason why people immigrate to different countries is, their home countries. It's it's the economy, but it's also politics. And I think it starts off with politics, right? With dictators and people in power, and because of greed, because of corporate interests, it it's it trickles down into the poorer communities. And you're talking about, well, you're running out of resources like toilet paper. I think there's a food shortage in Venezuela, I believe. So when it comes to people in power and they change the laws in a way that will benefit the dictators financially, as well as and the relationships, right? It hurts the poor. It trickles down into the lower income communities, and it becomes harder for those people to live in that country that that they flourished from. And even yourself, like when you talk about, you were doing well financially, right? And then, certain people came into power and that all changed, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Venezuela was huge back in the 70s and 80s. Everyone looked at that country as an example, but I'm not saying like it's only this guy's fault that why is Venezuela it's like that, because I think he got in power for a reason. But yeah, in the 90s everything started going down. Like my parents back in the day were able to buy a house, were able to buy a beach house in like different parts of the country, and they had like pretty normal regular jobs. But in here it got to the point that there was so much misery in the country that the only things that you would find in the store would be lentils, and everyone's eating lentils because there's the only thing that you could find. Also, you couldn't, because there was a shortage of everything, and the Latin community so agile. They then you would see the person that it goes to the store, buys the entire toilet paper, and then he resells it, right? Because everyone's looking for that hustle. So there were limits on how much food or toilet paper or anything you could get, like soap. It was insane. So you would see at a regular super like grocery store lines, people were lining up since 3 a.m. to get something at a decent price at the regular, like let's say at the legal exchange of the dollar, right? Because if you wanted something quick and available, yeah, you could go to the store that looks like, I don't know, any CVS here or here in the States. But yeah, you're paying what it could cost you at this grocery store, $5. It costs you here 30. And that is when the inflation just gets started growing and growing and growing, because and it still happens to this day that people that have money are just giving it away in things that are crazy, like paying for ice cream $50. It's something like that. It's insane. And
Mm.
people, yeah, the poor got poor, and you would see people are starving, people are thinner. Like it's crazy how many people that were, let's say, lower class, they had, I don't know, a little store, they had everything in stock, they were kind of like chubby but happy in their life. And then this regimen came in, and then you see this exact same guy, thin, nothing in the store, because it shows how it affected him, his family, and his business. And that's an example of what happened to everyone in Venezuela, except the people are very, very rich that have um, that have, let's say, the tools to survive. And that's why after that President Hugo Chavez died in 2013, that the country, if the country was going like this, when he died, it went like psh. After that, all people, everyone in Venezuela started leaving. We are a country of 30 million population. About 6 to 7 or 8 million people have left. It's crazy, from all classes, because even the board said, I don't have anything to lose anymore. I have nothing. I have nothing to eat. I have nothing to do here anymore. Even kidnapping was like not even a business anymore. It was insane. So now it's a bit safer, but people were running for their lives pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. And when things like this happen, sorry, I hear a truck. When things like this happen, you brought up a fair point. Like it's people were getting kidnapped. Like when when the economy gets worse and people are becoming poorer, crime tends to go up, right? So like you're showing a correlation between poverty and crime.
Yeah.
So as things got worse economically, things got worse in terms of uh, people stealing or kidnapping and things like that. So
The thing is that, let's say that I was like in my car with my phone, my iPhone. This, it's worth more than my entire life. And the people are stealing from you. It could be a 13-year-old kid that's what he got taught, and he kills you for the phone, because then later on he can resell that phone for something. Or even some like Jordans, some like a watch. There was a time that you had to hide everything on underneath the car and have a fake purse. So in case that like a motorcycle got knocked on your door with a gun or whatever and says, give me everything, you grab the fake purse with the old phone that you keep there always, give it to him. And it's crazy because sometimes they're like, no, that's not your phone, give it to me. And they would throw it back at you. And you're like in that moment with a gun to your head. And that could happen any given day, from your house to work to university. It didn't even matter. And that's a reality that we were living as well. So you were fearing for your life every single day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's understandable and that's pretty common. Your story is pretty common. I think that's the story of a lot of Cubans, right? While
Yeah.
they migrated to America. So it's a very common thing that you talked about.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we get all this in. So, okay, so you decide to leave Venezuela, right? Tell us the process. What you went well, you came to Canada for school. So tell us about that process.
So when I decided, like, I had so many friends that had left already, either went to the States to do an MBA, or either went to Canada, or either went to Chile, Colombia. I mean, people were going all over the world, right? And for me, it hurt me so much to leave the country that I thought that I would never leave. That I was like, I am not going to go to Latin America. I'm not going to go to something that it's not even close, like close to be similar to what I live, because it hurts so much that I just want to go somewhere else completely different. So again, my first option was the States, but to stay there, it's kind of like harder than here in Canada. So a friend told me, hey, I'm going to Canada. It's super easy. Why don't you go? Let me tell you all about it. She was paying like a lawyer to get here. And she explained me everything. She paid a lawyer. She um, booked a school, like spotted a school, all that. And I remember going back home and I told my parents, okay, pay me a lawyer. I'm going to Canada. And they're like, we're not paying you no lawyer. You go on your own, figure it out. Like, do your thing. We're not paying you a lawyer. We know you can do it. And I'm like, I want my lawyer. But the thing is that, yeah, a lawyer for that was like charging, I don't know, $7,000, $10,000 US, something like that.
Yeah.
So I started looking for schools. I wanted to come to Toronto because it's a multicultural city. And I started looking for schools that were in Toronto. Because at my 27 years old, I had a decent job, I had everything. And one thing that I said, I I don't want to be living in a house with a bunch of people like a student and feel awful living somewhere else, because I know already the experience is going to be very bad. So I was like, I'm going to study at a college that it's in downtown Toronto. That was one of my requirements. So I started looking for a college for a program in marketing that it was like I wanted to keep learning about my career, and I found George Brown College. And after that, I'm like, okay, where am I going to live? But in order to do that, I also let me step back a little bit. When I took the decision to move to Canada, it needed to be to study, because that's your kind of like your ticket in to the country. If you say I'm going to go there to work, no, they don't give a work permit that easily. But if you study for 1 year, they give you 1 year of work permit. If you study for 2 or 3 years, they give you 3 years of work permit. So it was what I wanted. And also with doing what I wanted, that was a postgraduate, I was going to get that work permit that I needed to start my experience here and everything, right? So I take the decision to go to Canada. I do all the paperwork, like legal paperwork, that I have to do in Venezuela, like validate my my diploma, my high school, my work, everything that I needed to present to the embassy for them to provide me with my student visa. So
Yeah.
once I get that, I'm like, okay, perfect. I applied for the college, and the college, you apply it in advance. So let's say that I started doing that in September of 2014, and or October 2014, and I booked it for the summer of the year after. So I started in 2015 here. So I knew that I was leaving. I had all of my documents. I got my spot in at the college. I had everything to be able to leave, my documents ready, everything that I needed to do. And once all that is done, that's when you send everything to the embassy, praying to the Lord that you get that approved. Because if they reject it, then you wasted all that time, all that money for nothing. So I sent everything. They approved my visa. When they approve my visa, that has to be closer to the date that you're leaving. Let's say that I applied in March or January and they take forever to do this. When I got the yes of my visa approved, it was like, this is done. I'm leaving. Like, there's nothing stopping me. And that's when I told Eli Lilly, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to do a postgraduate. I already have my spot there at the school. I want to do this, and I'm going to be here for another month. I'm going to take a month off, and then I'm gone. And that's what I did. So I mean, that year it's a lot of paperwork. I guess it's a lot of things that you need to get in order, especially coming from a country that it's non-English speaker.
Yeah.
Um, to get all that paperwork done, right? So I even had to hire someone to help me with all of the documents, all that they had to go to the Ministry of Education, this and that. And again, in countries like that or like mine, none of that works. If you go as a regular person, you can stay there for a week and you get nothing done. So it's better to kind of like pay someone and they do the diligence for you. So once I did that, I was ready to go. I was like, okay, where am I going to live now? I want to live closer because everyone said, Canada, you will die. There's like snow up to the roof. There's like an entire city underground. Mariana, you can't live that far. And you don't know, right? And we don't come, like, I don't come from the cold. I come from a country that offers me summer all year. Like, my city was 30 degrees all year long. Like, winter, it's 17 degrees. And we're like, oh my God, it's freezing. So, people were like, Mariana, there's so much snow. You got to leave clothes because people die there, like crazy stories. And I'm like, okay. So since January that year, I was moving in June. Since January that year, I was looking on Realtor app. Where am I going to live? Looking at the prices, writing emails to everyone. Hey, I'm going to move. I'm going to get there. I'm a student. And they were like, do you have a credit score? Do you have Equifax? Do you have this? I'm like, what is that? I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, no, I don't have any credit because I'm a student. So many doors. Everyone's like, oh, you're a student. You don't have credit score. Bye, 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 bye. They don't care. They're like, mm-mm. Only one guy was nice enough to say, okay, here are some options. Let's talk closer to the date. Let's talk in May. And sure, we'll figure something out. And that's the only guy. If I texted to like 30 realtors, only that guy said, okay, let me work with you. And the day after I arrived to Canada, I had a cousin that lived here. He was away, so he was like, you can stay at my place that week. I left everything there. And the day after, I was on a cab going to the realtor, knowing the city. I don't think I even saw pictures of it. I was like, the decision, it's done. I'm going. And I felt like, I don't know, Fresh Prince of Bel Air, like in the cab looking at
Yeah.
into the mansion. And I was like, oh, look at all of this. And I started looking for places. And that was another challenge because it's like, if you don't have a credit score, it's pretty hard for anyone to rent you an apartment and to believe that you are going to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you coming from one country to a different country, it's like all this stuff was thrown at you, right? And it's like you have to adjust pretty quickly. And I just wanted to point out that you came to Canada. It sounds like you had some friends who left and they were pretty much telling you, hey, go to Canada. So it's you're taking your friend's advice, right? You know,
Well,
yeah.
no, I was gonna
Well,
say that friend that sent me, and she's like, "Yeah, I've got everything. You go, girl. Like we're gonna live together. I have everything." She had everything for her was moving faster because she did it with um with a lawyer. But when I got here, she wasn't here. She got here like a year after I was here.
oh, so even that was a surprise to you,
Yeah,
right?
she
So
sent
you,
me off. I
um,
only had my cousin who was married already, so he has his life, everything, and I'm not even close to him to up like to this date. One person that I work with at Novartis, also married, but they were nice. Like actually, the wife was the one that picked me up at the airport,
yeah,
and that was about it. Maybe some people from university, but not my friends. And
yeah,
it's tough because you're coming here solo and you're making new friends. And yeah, my cousin invited me with like to hang out with his group of friends, but they were like also different priorities, right? They're like all working, kids, married, this and that, and I'm like studying, trying to know everything. And I mean, they were very nice, but I didn't know them from before in Venezuela. So yeah, you start making friends, even from like the realtor guy was very nice. Not that I became friends with him, but he was like a person that helped me out with like took me to. I remember I was like, I need to open a bank account. He took me. He was sitting right next to me at the bank as I opened my bank account because I had no idea.
Right. And it's like, so at that point, how many years have you lived in Canada?
At this point, 7 years.
Okay, so you were there for a good while. But out of those 7 years, how many years were you in school?
Only one.
Okay, 1 year of school, and then you were working the other 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been in Canada for a while at that point, but now, Amy, but now you're living on your own, and now you have to find your own place. And did you get your residency yet at that time?
No, so when I came here in 2015, I was a student, right? And I was a student for a year. And as a student in Canada, you can work part time. So I was bored. I was like, because also I got to college and everyone was doing their own thing. You would go to class, and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna make so many friends, and we're gonna hang out after school. No, everyone after school is going to their work, to their things. Like to hang out with someone from college was like so hard. Maybe the international students would be the one like hanging out, but I was like the only Latin American one. So I didn't even have like a crew that was familiar to me, So
Yeah.
I would hang out with like some of the Canadians, but again, and some of the internationals, but everyone's like so scattered. Everyone had something to do after it that I got bored, and I'm like, okay, let me work a little bit. So I started looking for a job in, I don't know, at a mall. I even hid it from my parents because they were like, no, we didn't send you there to work. We sent you there to study. And I didn't find a job at any store because I was traveling in December, and they were like, no, whoever starts working now, we need them all December. I'm like, no, I'm visiting my sister. So I got to a restaurant, and the girl was like, yeah, what do you want to be? I'm like, I don't know, whatever, host. Like, and she's like, do you want to be a takeout cashier? I'm like, sure. And I worked there for like 6 months. I loved it. It was such a whatever job, but I loved it. I made so many friends because I was only in the takeout cashier. I was not even a server. I was not even a host. I was like in the middle of so many things, helping everyone. But I made many, many friends, and it's like a job that I was like very thankful. So that was like the first year what I could do with my work permit. I'm sorry, with my study permit. Once I'm done of my study permit, I am able to apply for a work permit. So then they gave me, because I studied 1 year, they gave me 1 year to work. So they gave me a work permit from 2016 to October 2017. That's when I start doing the express entry, the requirements. So because of the work that I had in Venezuela, which was like management in pharmaceuticals, and the amount of years, I had the maximum of points on in my professional career or my experience. Because of my English, you need to take tests, either the IELTS or another one that it's like a Canadian one that it's called CELPIP, and they're both so hard. I don't know. It was like, because you need like the top points in each area. If not, the points like they don't give you, let's say, the recognition that you need in order to be able to make it to the maximum of points in your English. So the express residency works back then as a pool. So my experience counted for this amount of points. The fact that I was like younger than 30 years old, it counted for a certain amount of points. The fact that I was single, the fact that I studied here, I had more points. So all that added on, and the hardest one to get was the English one, to the point that I've always considered that my English is good when it comes to like speaking. And there was even one that I took that test, and those tests are like $300 every time you want to take it. It was like super low score. I'm like, you can fail me at anything, but not at my speaking. No, 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 no. And then I took the IELTS and I did so much better, and I was able to get into the pool one while I had my work permit. But it got to the point that I was very worried because, again, I failed that test. I was not making it to the pool. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to take that test again, until I get the maximum score in all four areas: speaking, listening, writing, and reading. And I'm terrible at reading, I'm a terrible writer. And you need the maximum. If not, you don't get the points. And I was so worried because I was like, I'm running out of time. What if I actually hit October and I still haven't made it to the pool? I'm out. I will have to leave Canada. And I don't know, something happened. I was about the day that I was about to book another test, another English test. Don't ask me what happened. Random pool. They threw it on a Wednesday when it's usually one per month. This was like 5 days after the one that they already done. So something like crazy. I got on my phone by chance. It opened up on the pool website because I was talking about that the day before. And I'm like, I'm in, I made it. And I didn't have to book that test. And that's in July. That's when I apply for my residency. So everything that I put in the application, my work, my studies, everything that I put there, now I had to prove it. So when you are invited to the pool, when you are invited to apply, you need to prove that everything that you put in that profile, it is actually true. So that happened in 2017. And it took few months to get that. And I was, again, I'm like, oh my God, are they going to accept it or not? Because also my work permit is running out of time. But the times match. I was perfect. I wasn't. I always had a status here in Canada, and in 2007, exactly 2017, I think October, they said yes, you've been accepted. You're a resident, and then they send you a document that it's kind of like one entry visa. And when you enter the country, you have to leave the country or make an appointment. But I mean, the idea is that you leave the country, you come back in, either flying or by land. You give that document that you got, and they give you your residency card. That's when you become a resident. And that happened for me in 2018.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's amazing. So tell us when you finally got that residency, right? What was going through your mind? What were you thinking? How are you feeling?
So it was a big change because first it was like, once you're a resident, you already proved to Canada that you're worth of like that status, right? So all you have to do after that is wait a few years for your Canadian citizenship.
Hmm.
And I don't have any other nationality. I don't have any other citizenship that it's other than Venezuela. For example, in Venezuela, there's a lot of immigrants from Europe, from like back in the day. So a lot of my friends had the European passport, for example.
Yeah.
And one of my main goals in coming to Canada was to get that, not the residency. The residency is like, yes, I'm on the right path. But that passport, the thing that makes me free of my country, and what I mean by that, it's like I as a Venezuelan, we need visas for absolutely everything. Every time we fly, it's like, where are you going? Do you have money? Where show me pictures that you work there. Show me a letter of your work. Show me this. We have to prove to any country that we fly to so much that we're not going to immigrate, that to take that off my back was like, okay, I'll be free. I'll be able to move really through the world with this passport, right? So when I got my residency, I'm like, okay, I made it. And it changed the status of my search for employment. Because also, a thing that happened is that when you're looking for a job on a work permit, even though it's illegal, companies do ask, what is your status here? Because they don't want to hire someone and then that someone says, oh, my work permit is about to expire. Can you sponsor me? Right? Like, companies don't want to do that. So they would ask, do you have a work permit? Yes. For how long? And I'm like, well, it ends in October of 2017. They're like, yeah, we don't know. I'm like, but I'm going to get my residency. I'm going to get my residency. I promise. And they're like, yeah, no, we actually have people that we don't have to worry about that. Right. So for me, that was such a relief to be able to now apply to a job where I'm not being questioned if I'm going to get kicked out of the country or not. So that was a game changer. And that's when, after I got my residency, it's when I start working in a like in the corporate world. I'm able to be back in the corporate world because while I was between school and trying to find that job in marketing, that was one of my main um, blogs, right? My work permit. And I ended up like working as a general manager at a restaurant. Then I worked like with a recruiter. Then I went back to another restaurant. Then I worked at the Four Seasons as a host, and I enjoyed it because the working at the Four Seasons was really nice. They had like insurance benefits, something that I didn't get anywhere else, right? Before in Canada. So once having that, let's say, green card to be able to apply for a job without being questioned on your status, was it opened many doors for me.
Hmm. And that's it's what you're saying is relatable because it's I went through a similar a similar struggle of being a green card holder here in the States. And you know you're you always have to like get permission from your home country to do something, even though I spent the majority of my life here in America. It's still like, wait, because I'm originally from Trinidad, so it's like, oh wait, I have to check with the Trinidadian consulate to see, oh, can I do this, even though I spent like the majority of my life here in America. So it's always eh, I I didn't have the ease to do a lot of things, even when it came to travel, because I had to like get permission from two countries in a way, as opposed to like one. And so, like, when I finally got my citizenship, I was like, "Whew, I don't have to do all that anymore." So,
Yeah,
what you're saying is definitely relatable
it's a
in
game
that.
changer.
What was that?
I said it's a game changer to have that document. It's like, okay.
Right. It's like you don't have to walk with I we call it a green card, but you don't have to walk with a green card anymore. You just have the passport. When you're applying for like public assistance, it's just, are you a citizen? Okay, and that's it. As opposed to like, if you're a green card holder, or your case just residency, there's like a few extra questions that they have to ask you, right?
Yeah,
Just because you're not a citizen, right? So just the fact that now that you're a citizen, is less paperwork you have to fill out, is less you have to go through, and it's a relief to finally get that passport.
my friends even, so I got my passport in May. In May I had my ceremony and I got the passport, I think, in June. And I haven't traveled yet outside of Canada with a passport, but all of my friends, my Venezuelan friends, are like, you're gonna be so happy. Like, you just have to live the experience of not being like judged instantly for by the fact that you were Venezuelan. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. And I went to Mexico last year. So something that happened, that interesting that happened, is that for that Lotto, like green card Lotto that happens in the States. I forgot the name of it, that you can apply and maybe you win the green card.
Yeah, lottery. Yeah, Visa lottery. Yeah.
They took Venezuela out of that last year. Now we are listed as the countries that cannot apply for that. So because of the amount of immigrants, Venezuelan immigrants that the country already has, and Mexico was getting really worried about, like, oh, now Venezuelans are going to immigrate through Mexico. And I traveled with Mexico to meet with my dad, and they were questioning a lot, like the Venezuelans, like, where do you work, everything. So I had everything in hand just in case, because I am Venezuelan. And as I was in the line for the immigration, you could see families and the guys, like the security guy, or like the patrol. I don't know the proper name for it. The immigration guy was, okay, where do you work? And they're like, here. Why are you coming here? Where are you visiting? Show me the proof that you're going to stay at a hotel. They would ask the kids that are like 5 and 3 years old, what is the name of your mom? What is the name of your dad? When it's her birthday? When it's his birthday? Show me a picture of you at work. Show me an email. Show me this. And I'm like standing, listening to all of this. And I'm like, it's insane. How is it possible that we go through that? So when it's my turn, I'm like, hi, I give my passport, and they're like, what do you do in Venezuela? And I was like, I don't live in Venezuela. I'm a Canadian resident. And I take the residency card and I hand it to the guy, and he's like, okay, you can go. As simple as that. And it's crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy. And even like, well, like when you're traveling, coming back into your, I don't know if it's like this in Canada, but when you're traveling back to your home country, there's always like the citizen line is over here, and then you have like everyone else in another line, and then like the people going in that other line, that takes them even longer. That's a longer line. They have to wait longer, as opposed to like the citizens is just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. And even when you go to other countries, like if you're from the States, if you're like, I don't know, ETA or like whatever from Europe or Canada, you can go here. And you're like, no, I'll go through there. But no, I mean, yeah, when I got my passport, because when I did my citizenship, of course, like very emotional. And I was like, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel good, but I feel like once you have your passport in your hand, it's like, this is it. This is what I want. This is what I came here for. And I do have to say, I mean, it's not an easy path. And I was talking about that with some friends over Thanksgiving, because in Canada, Thanksgiving was yesterday. And there's one girl that just got here. She's studying English, and she was like, how is it? And I'm like, the path, it's different from everyone, right? Like there's people that leave the country with one hand and at the front and the other one in the back. Like they help their families, they struggle, they have to hustle, they have 3 jobs, they study. Like there's the other people that come here like with a better reality, like they're able to afford to rent on their own. It depends on the situations, but I feel like it all comes to the point on how do you face all of these challenges, right? Because I think I've had it hard, but not in the sense that for example, I didn't have to help my family back home. And if I did, I know that would be a completely different reality. My priorities would be completely different. But I mean, the struggles finding a job, it's hard. When I thought I was doing everything right, like networking, talking with all of the teachers at school, talking with all the speakers, volunteering, because they tell you volunteer. At some point, that took me nowhere, and it was pretty sad to see that all of those efforts and they're not going anywhere. And I ended up working in finance. It's what I do now, and even though I've had pretty good opportunities in my job, I still missed the part of being in marketing or being a brand manager. Like presenting all of my brands, my marketing launch, or like the business review to the sales team. I guess I missed that so much that I started while I was in these jobs that were not, let's say, fulfilling me, and feeling like I needed to do something else, I started doing comedy in Spanish and in English. And that's something kind of like I went back to what my passion is, let's say, to be
Yeah.
like speaker. And then I started doing public speaking. And I'm like, okay, I like this. Because at the current job that I have, I don't have that. But I like the fact that I see it as a sign of the universe that push me to some others, like other path, and to see where what other things I could do with the things that I love, with the things that I'm passionate about, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that takes me to this podcast today, or like to do my own podcast, to do my comedy and everything. And I love my time there. Sometimes I feel like, what if I found a job as soon as I got here in marketing, which was I wanted? Probably I would be working in a corporation, growing like I was doing in back in Venezuela. So I feel like it's the attitude that changes everything when it comes to all the challenges that you're facing. And I feel like everything happens to help ourselves grow, to make ourselves better, to see things differently, to learn from other things. But yeah, sometimes I turn back and I said, I think it could have been easier.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like going through this journey and there's so much that you experience and there's so much that you learn and it's like but it's like getting to the end of the finish line, right? So like by the time you get there, it's like, whew, I don't have to stress out anymore.
Totally. No, no, 100%. And I feel like it is tough to be an immigrant. It's tough to I feel like nobody tells you. It's like, I don't know if it's like the story, like the pregnants never tell the reality of so many things. A lot of people don't tell you everything that you struggle with when you are going into a new country. A lot of people are like, "Yeah, come, it's super fun. You will love it. It's fine." And you get there and you're like, "No, this is not fun. This is not like you told me." And I remember one cousin was going to come here, and she's like, Mariana, how is it? I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not easy. Like, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I was straight up, I'm like, you get to love it or you get to hate it. But I mean, this is our kind of like the challenges that you're gonna see, and this is what you have to do so you don't, like, I'm gonna teach you what I'm gonna tell you what I saw, what I learned, so you don't make the same mistakes. And she talked with a bunch of people. And when they moved here, she's like, the only person that told me the truth was Mariana. The only person that actually told us what it was going to be like. Because a lot of people are like, yeah, yeah, come, everything is perfect. So I always say, I'm not going to be an immigrant with two hands tied like in my on my back. I'm like, if I move to another country ever again, it's because I have a job, or I'm very wealthy and I'm like, okay, I can afford to move there and see what happens. But it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And just to point out something you said earlier, and that the fact that you came to Canada for school, but your parents didn't pay for school, right? So you had to pay for school all by yourself, and even paying for the plane ticket. Uh,
No, well, no.
paying.
In my case, my parents helped me. They did.
Oh, okay.
No, no,
They
no.
did
I
help
was
you with school.
Yeah, I was grateful for that, because that's I asked them, because I didn't have the money. I had to ask them and say, please help me get out of here. Like, it's what I have to do. And they struggle a little bit, but the fact that, again, your daughter can get killed any given day, it's they were like, okay, yeah, we're happy that you're out of here. We're happy that, I guess, we're not going to be worried about you. But after that, after school is done, it's on my own. It's struggling, working every day to pay my rent, to pay my bills, to pay everything that I have here. If I wanted to travel, if I went to Venezuela, it was all on me. But thank God my parents helped me with school. That's one thing that I'm like, thank you, because if not, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And that's a thing. Like, it's so, I think in the States you can't work while you study.
Yeah.
At least here in Canada you can work, um but only part-time. but
Yeah.
no part-time. It's going to maintain Toronto life. It's like it's crazy. So you see a lot of people from like India, they do study like 3 years, or they live in, um, I had many friends from school, and they would be living in a like in a bachelorette or some like seven people there, like they're making the best that they can. They're studying all the 2 years to make sure that they work here for 3 years, to make sure that they don't get sent back, because they're so scared. They're putting everything that they have. They're betting all of their future in those 3 years, right? Or like 4 years. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. But no, I was thankful that I'm still are thankful to my parents that they were able to help me. That's why I had to hide from them when I started working. I told them after, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm working. We're at a restaurant. They're like, why are you working? We sent you there to study. I was like, I'm bored. I need something to do. And it's nice to have some extra money to like get myself, I don't know, Starbucks or something, right? Because money's so limited that those extra few bucks monthly were like, yeah, it felt like I was rich, even though it was nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And just it's you're trying to make it out on your own, because at this point, like, your parents, your parents helped with school, but the rest is on your own. Like, you still have to do rent, and there was a certain. It sounds like there was a certain lifestyle that you wanted to have, right? Because you easily could have lived in a dorm with everybody else, and then your tuition pays for the dorm, but you decided, no, I want to live. I want to live in an apartment. I don't want to live in school housing.
Well,
So,
they don't have dorms here for that school.
oh,
But
okay,
you could live in a family, like a family that has a house and like seven kids there. And of course, you pay like minimum rent. So what you pay is cheaper, but I was in denial, and maybe I was like spoiled or whatever. But I was like, I've worked. It's not that I've failed in my professional life. It's not that I failed in my studies. I've done everything right, but my country hasn't let me have a better future, and there's nothing I can do. In fact, when I quit to Eli Lilly, they were like, please stay. They offered me a bonus of like a lot of money, like to stay with them. They increased my salary. They were like, but please stay. And I'm like, I am out. I am out. I'm sorry. I already have my future there. I can't stay. And wait, I lost my trail of thought. But what I was saying is that yeah, I did everything good. My career was doing great. I was, out of all of my sisters, I was like the youngest one having like a great salary. I was able to pay for my own car there because of the benefits also that the pharmaceutical industry gives you as an employee. But I was able to do all of these things that I was like, okay, if I'm going to leave my country, I want to at least have a decent living. I'm not, if I'm going to go there and live in a house with seven different people and like having who knows whatever food, I'd rather stay and be killed here any given day. I don't care. So that was what I did. But I know a lot of friends came, and I remember one friend was like sleeping in a studio that was like this, like if even if it's an office, it's like very, very small. And there was like her friend and her, and the beds were like together, not even like a base, like feet together, like the feet would be able to touch at night of how small that place was.
yeah,
And it depends on like what you're willing to do. And now she was able to, she has a great job. For example, her story is a bit different. She studied 2 years. She was able to get into pharmaceutical, into her career, into great company. She works at P&G, and she has done great. And now she was able, for example, to buy her own home. I'm still renting, and now she has her own home. So it's like, it's a different path and decisions that I guess you take in order to survive.
yeah. Yeah, and it's everyone has their own path, which is interesting, especially when it comes to immigration. So
Mhm.
now I want to make sure we get this in, and it looks like we're going into overtime, but that's okay. Um, so I wanted to ask you if I mean, because a lot of people who went through what you went through in Venezuela, even though they wanted to get out, they may not have had the finances or even the resources to get out.
Mhm.
But I think you're a unique situation in that you had the support of your parents to get you out of the country, right? So now, do you think that that school was your ticket out of of Venezuela? Do you think because you left Venezuela to go to school, right? So you had a school visa. I know a lot of people leave their countries for a job, right? So do
Mhm.
you think that school was your ticket out of the country?
For sure. I mean, it's if it weren't like that, I don't think I would have been able to get into the country. Like, not even. Like, maybe as a tourist and then stay and work my way out, but or my way in actually. But that was my ticket out of Venezuela, and it was my ticket into Canada. Because without that school, I would have never made it like to where I am at that moment. Maybe if I did the express residency thing, I would have stayed a few years longer in Venezuela, waiting for everything to work through to get into the pool. And I don't know what could have happened in those years. Like anything could have happened, from the fact that I could have gone to another country with a company, or I could have gotten killed, or I could have gotten into a relationship and then I'm trapped there. Like so many things. So I don't know, but yes, I was like, it is time to study, and this is the only way out. It's school. And I wanted to do that postgraduate, right? So it was my ticket out of Venezuela for sure. And I remember my uncle, my aunts were like, okay, yeah, go study and then you'll be back. And I'm like, no, I'm not coming back. I'm leaving now. Like, this is it. Like, this is my ticket out, and I am not coming back. And I remember other uncles were saying, if Mariana is leaving this country, it's done. Because I defended that country so much with my heart, with everything. And I swore that I would never leave. I mean, I never
Mhm.
wanted to leave, but that was one of the reasons of why I studied business administration, because I knew that I may had to leave at some point because of the situation of the country. My passion back then, I would have loved to study law, but I know my thought process back then was, if I study law, whenever I go to another country, I would have to do all of this, validations in order to prove my career over there. And I think I don't want to do that. I think I rather do business administration, that it's a world known career, accepted everywhere. And by the time that I need to leave the country, if it comes to that, because the probabilities were very high, I will be able to go and apply for a job without any major issue.
Yeah. So now, do you think school was an easy way out in terms of if you were to like, I'm going to go look for a job, do you think your parents would have supported you as opposed to school? So do you think it was an easy way out?
I mean, if you have the help of your parents, I would say it is an easy way out, because you can figure it out as you go, let's put it that way, while you're studying. But if the case is that it's the only way in Canada, let's put it that way, and you're putting everything of your savings to pay for your school, and then you have to work the legal and not legal part, because when you need money, you work on cash jobs, whatever, right? And you need to send money to your family or to sustain yourself. It's hard, because also you need to be in school, you cannot get kicked out, you need to maintain your grades. So it is very, very hard depending on like what the situation would be. But in my case, I would say it was the easy way out. Also, it was something that I wanted to do. Than coming here with your savings, surviving, and applying for jobs. And the thing here in Canada, I don't know how it's in the States, but the thing here in Canada is that it doesn't matter what your experience is back in Venezuela, because if they don't know,
Yeah.
they're like, I need you to have Canadian experience. And that's the main thing. You need Canadian experience, you need Canadian experience. But the things that nobody wants to give you the Canadian experience. So I got rejected from so many jobs where I was like, I'll do the extra work, I'll work weekends, I'll work nights, give me the opportunity. I'm a fast learner, I'll do this, like everything. And they were like, yeah, but no, she doesn't know packaging. But because in Venezuela, we didn't package anything in house or in the country because everything was imported. That's a situation that I couldn't never change. Like it was my situation, but they were like, oh yeah, no, next. Or the most common answer was, oh no, you had nothing to say bad about your like interview, everything was great, your feedback was super good, this that, but they hired someone that has experience in Toronto or has worked with our competitor. And it's so hard because as the years go by, you get farther and farther and farther from your experience. Or you could have the person that believes in you, and that's the story of my friend, the one that I just said that she bought her condo, was living in a small place. She was doing a speech for P&G and stuff, and her story was that she went to do um an interview for how do you call it, like when you work and you're still in school, an internship. So she
Yeah.
went for an internship, and the lady said, I'm going to give you the opportunity because I was an immigrant like you, and I know that what it's like. And she went first time to GlaxoSmithKline, the pharmaceutical that it's huge. So imagine all the doors that opened for her. My first job was like a crazy guy that pulled her hair out. Like, it's like it depends on what your fate and like is, I guess. But coming here without that ticket, without like only that work visa, and having to work that year, depending on what the situation is, it's hard because you could be 3, 4, 5 months without a job.
Yeah.
And how much money do you have in your savings that you can maintain that? Or how much do you have to work? Because also the easiest money, let's say it's at a restaurant, because it's fast, like with tips and this and that. But when you work at a restaurant and the company calls you and says, oh, I need you Wednesday at 3 p.m. and you have a shift, it's like, how do you juggle with those things, right? It's hard as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. But that's another story for another day. So I got to schedule a part two with you.
Totally.
But let's start to wind things down. So now, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience? Any parting words?
I would say it's when people ask like what you would say to young Mariana or your little you. It's like everything is going to be fine. I feel like as long as we put our passion, we learn from our mistakes, we learn to see things with a different lens. Because I feel like sometimes a lot of people immigrate but they never change their mindset, they never understand the culture that they're living in, and you're trapped all the time. So I feel like to have an open mind, to understand that what happens happens, let's put it for a reason, to either learn to not do it again, to learn you grow. um, just do it. If you want to immigrate to another country, what I always say, it's like the worst thing that you can have that it can happen is that you try your luck there, you see if you like it, and if you don't like it, you go back home. But it opens your mind, especially like we have our own culture, everyone has their own culture. And the fact that I moved in here, I feel like I see Venezuelans today even with a different lens, and I'm like, I'm so glad that I don't think like that anymore. I'm so glad that I learned this from the world and from a new living, right? And I feel take everything as a path to the future that we want, and also like never lose focus, because sometimes things get so hard that we can get lost. So as long as you have a focus, my focus was my Canadian passport, and I was going to do everything any given day to get to have that, to make that happen. And I remember at work I was like, sometimes I was at work that I was like, I don't care, I want to go back to Venezuela right now. I don't care that they don't have water, I don't care that they don't have electricity, I don't care. But I that's how I felt sometimes. But I was like, I need my Canadian passport, and that was my goal. And now that I have it, I don't want to go back. I have such a different life. I'm grateful. It took me a while to be grateful with the opportunity that I had. And I feel like it's because I didn't see everything with a grain of salt. I was just like, life is happening to me and not for me, you know? So I think have a goal, put your passion and soul into it, and take everything as a learning, as a blessing that you've had the opportunity to explore something different, and that you gave yourself the opportunity to make that decision, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes you just, you just got to go for it, and if it's something that you want, then just go for it and stick it out and do what you got to do.
Yeah, totally. Sometimes I feel like a friend asked me because something happened to me here, and they were like, "How do you deal with that?" Like, I was like, I didn't have time to deal with it. I had to go to work. I had to find a job. I had to get my residency. I have to do this. Like, I had no time. I just had to go, 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 and power through. And that's what I did. And now I'm here with a pretty good life, and I'm looking forward to get even better. To get, I'm a great job right now, and I hope I keep growing with my speaking, with my comedy, with my 9 to 5, with everything. And it's all thanks to giving myself the opportunity to be here, to accept all the changes, to accept all the challenges, and power through.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, all right. So, we definitely got to do a part two. There's so much we didn't even cover. We didn't even talk about the what you had to do to get the residency, because that's a whole thing in
Yeah,
itself. And even, you coming on a student visa. So now you have to go from a student visa to residency and all that entails. But we don't got time for that right now. But we're gonna do. I gotta get you back on here for that conversation.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah. But all right, let's go ahead and jump to your promo.
Yay.
All right, you guys. So Mariana Santiago, you can find her all over social media. She is on Facebook. She's on YouTube. She got 2 Instagrams, you guys. So I encourage you to find her on social media and follow her on all of her accounts. Her Facebook and YouTube is just her name, Mariana Santiago, and she got 2 Instagram accounts. I want to point out 2 Instagrams. So one of them is Mariana191, and the other one is Ellis Ella A Mariantina. I think that's what that says. What does that
It,
say?
it says Eva is Marianita.
Ella es Marianita. That's right. So all of that information is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen if you are watching this on video. And for my audio people, I did not forget about you. All of this information is in the description. So if you're not able to capture this information, that is okay. This information is at your fingertips one way or another. But I encourage you to follow her on social media. If you have any questions, if you want to talk to her, sorry, there's a lot of screaming in the background right now. Let me just close my window for a second. All right. So if you want to reach out to her, you want to talk to her, you want to pick her brain, definitely, follow her on social media. Please reach out to her. Her information is available. So you can see it on your screen right now or check it out in our description. So Mariana, do you have Do you want to promote your business or?
Yeah, I would say right now I'm promoting the season one of my podcast, which is in English called Is Mariana Making Sense? Where I talk about different topics that we cruise in life on how to be a better person in this crazy society and in this crazy world, and how to not be so busy and just react, but to think a little bit more. And they're like very short podcasts. So it's called Is Mariana Making Sense, in video on YouTube, and in audio and all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, whatever you want to listen to it. And it's also, if anyone wants to listen to it in Spanish, it's also there available. It's called Mariana con o sin sentido, and it's also available in the same channels. And I talk about the exact same thing in Spanish and in English. So I repeat everything. I have also guests sometimes. So that's pretty good for my comedy. I would say if you're in Toronto, you gotta follow me to go to my shows. And yeah, that's about it. I do promote a bit of my shows on Instagram as well. So yeah, hit me up if you want to reach out, whatever. I'm always available, and I love to meet new people.
All right, awesome. So she has a Spanish podcast and an English podcast. So check it out. Follow, definitely follow her on both of her podcasts. The English one is called Is Mariana Making Sense? And what's the Spanish one called?
Mariana con o sin sentido.
All right. So both podcasts are available wherever there are podcasts. So please check her podcast out and give her a rating. Give her a 5-star rating, you guys. Drop a rating, when you listen to an episode. So, yeah. So check out her podcast, in Spanish and in English. So it's bilingual there. So definitely check it out wherever you get your podcast. All right, Mariana, thank you again for joining me. This was awesome. We definitely gotta, there's so much more we gotta, dive into this topic. There's so much that goes into it. So, I gotta get you back on for a part two. But thank you for joining me today. I do, and thank you for staying overtime with me. I do appreciate it.
I love talking, so I'm here all night.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy that I was able to be here with you.
Thank you. All right, let me put you backstage and off camera. There we go. All right, you guys. I know we're over time, but bear with me. Let me get up my contact information here. All right, you guys. So we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I encourage you to stay in touch with us, right? So this podcast is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our company, the things that we have to offer, maybe you're looking for a tutor. You're looking for a tutor for your child or even for yourself, because we also work with adults. Please check us out. Our website is www.stepaheadtutoringservices.com. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We are on a variety of different platforms. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, Eventbrite. I think there's another one. I can't think of it right now. But we are on a lot of different platforms. And I encourage you to find all of us and follow all of us on our different platforms. So please reach out to us and please follow us. So we definitely will appreciate the support. And also let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section or in the comment thread. Or if you happen to be listening to this on audio right now on a variety of different podcast platforms, whether that's Apple or Spotify or iHeartRadio or Podchaser or Google Podcasts, wherever you are listening to this on audio, please drop us a rating. Let us know what you think about our podcast and this episode as well. So however you are taking in the sound of my voice, drop us a line, right? Whether that's a comment or a rating or whatever it is, please drop us a line and give us your feedback. We definitely will appreciate the support. And I also want to encourage you to sign up for our text list. So if you want to stay in touch of all that is Hot Topics, you'll learn about upcoming episodes, live streaming episodes. You'll also know when the audio drops. So if you want to stay in touch of anything and everything that is Hot Topics, I encourage you to sign up for our text list. All you have to do is text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. Again, just text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. All right, you guys, and that is it. Thank you so much for joining me today. And so now I am now signing off. So see you next time, you guys. Bye.